Hey everybody, good morning. Happy Monday to you. I am sitting here in my YouTube office here with my buddy Dave Whaley. And Dave is my Inspector Extraordinaire, Home Inspector
Wow.
Extraordinaire.
Wow.
And he has pretty much done every inspection for every buyer's client I've had in the past 4.5 years.
Thank you.
And there's a reason for that. Dave is really thorough, and I just know in my heart that he's doing the best he can for my clients. So it's a great marriage between us. And so I wanted to bring Dave on today just because I also list a lot of homes. And one of the biggest questions I get asked is just to come over to my client's house first, and they want to know, hey, what can we do? Like, come look at the house. What can we do before, so we can get ready to list our house? And most of the time, it's cosmetic things. They want to know, hey, and usually I will tell them, hey, declutter, maybe, lighten up the paint a little bit, things like that. Those are all things in my area of expertise. But there are things that are beyond my scope of expertise, and that's where Dave comes in. And there are things other than cosmetic things that people really need to look at before they list their homes. Right. The bones of the house, the roof, underneath the house, all the mechanicals, the plumbing, the electric, and just making sure that those things are sound before you list, because the time you don't want to find out about those things is when you come along.
Exactly.
and then everybody's scrambling. It's always kind of a crazy time anyway,
right,
with inspections, because real estate is a very emotional business, and when somebody's buying this huge asset that they're going to be living in, the littlest things can really throw them off, and they will potentially walk away. It's happened to me before where something has happened and they're like, we just don't want any parts of it. And it really wasn't that big of a deal. But if you can get these things out of the way and just find these things that could potentially come up in an inspection before you list, it's all the better. So Dave is going to talk to you today about the things that you can do to get your home ready for listing.
Very good. Well, like Justin said, we're going to talk about a few things that you can do to maybe make the selling process a little easier for you, and maybe not get any blowback from your buyers. I think I'll start with probably some of the easy things, and then we'll kind of progress into some more technical things that you could do in the process of getting your house ready for sale. First and foremost, and this is the thing I think I find right off the bat, smoke detectors. In the state of Maryland, they need to be less than 10 years old. And of course, the new ones won't have the 9-volt batteries, so you don't have to change the batteries every year or so. So go and change your smoke detectors. That's an easy one. Now, I will say I see a lot of houses that I guess people aren't comfortable with the electrical portion of it. If a smoke detector is originally hardwired, it's got to stay hardwired. I see a lot of houses where they'll come in, they're really not comfortable with changing the wiring out, so they just slap a battery-only one in. Technically, that's not correct. Now, I think some of the companies do make ones with adapters so that you do not have to change the wiring out. You can just pick the correct adapter and everything is good. So that's the first thing. If you live in a house that either has a gas furnace or an oil furnace, and you do not have a carbon monoxide detector, by all means, please put one in. If not for this, for your own safety, okay? You can buy one probably at Lowe's or any of your hardware stores for about 25 bucks. A lot of them plug right into an outlet, down near the floor. So that's a great one. The next one I'm going to move to are gutters and downspouts. Water is probably the biggest thing that I see that causes negative outcomes on an inspection. If your gutters are full and the water is not being moved away from the house, one, if you've got a crawl space, that water ends up in the crawl space or the basement. Also, too, if the gutters are clogged, it can cause some of the trim of your house to be rotted because that water is always kind of bathing that water, that wood in water. So get your gutters cleaned out. Downspouts, if you don't have splash blocks or extensions on the downspouts, and they really only need to be 2 or 3 feet long. You just want to have that water start moving away from the house to get that out of there. So that's another great one. On front steps, handrails, make sure they're nice and tight, as well as on decks. Look at your handrails and the railing around the deck. Make sure that those are all nice and tight. Try to get any leaves or whatever off the decks and all, because as an inspector, I can only inspect what I can see. Certainly, it makes it a little more pleasant for me to be able to do that, and I can actually do my job. And also, too, I think your buyers, they want to see the whole thing as well. So that's a great one. Filters for your heat pump. How many houses do I go in where the filter looks like it hasn't been changed in years, and there's 2 filters sitting in the closet? The system works so much better, and it gives a better appearance that we've got a fresh filter in there, that it's not you couldn't knit a sweater from the cat hair that's in there. Like Justin said before, a lot of the things are cosmetic. As an inspector, I'm not really looking at the cosmetic. Now, certainly, if I see places on the ceiling that are stained, which could signify that we've had a leak or something like that, we want to address those. And we certainly don't want to just gloss over them, but try to find the root of the problem on that. But HVAC systems and all that, make sure your equipment's been serviced, so that it's working at its potential. Because as an inspector, I'm coming in and I'm working for the buyer. I'm going to test that equipment to make sure that it's working properly, and if it's not, the HVAC technician is going to be coming out anyway. So why not do it now? And it kind of eliminates that problem at the 11th hour. Appliances, make sure they're all in working order. Hardware on doors, cabinets, make sure all that's nice and tight. Nothing worse than coming in and the door handles are loose, or the cabinetry is loose. You may have a hinge that just needs a little tightening up. A lot of this is very, very simple. Another item would be windows and doors, anything with a glass pane. Certainly, if you've got any that have cracked glass, get them replaced, because certainly that will certainly come up in the report. Also, if you have insulated pane windows, you know how they get foggy. You can replace those panes in there. You don't have to replace the whole window. Most glass companies out there can come out, take a measurement, actually take that sash that's affected back to their shop and do a new sash. Really that pane it's functionally fine. It's just cosmetically not working, but it draws your eye to it. Probably more important though is on your double hung windows. When you push them up, they need to stay up. A lot of times they have a spring-loaded mechanism in there that kind of helps that sash maintain its position. If they're flopping down, you need to get that fixed, because that's a safety hazard. Somebody could get a hand in there, break a finger or two. Also, too, if it comes down hard enough, it could actually cause the glass to crack itself. And I know that's something that all inspectors are looking at on windows. On doors, just make sure that all locks work. One thing I will always point out is any keyed deadbolts. I'm not a fan of keyed deadbolts. Even though people say, oh, I leave the key inside or I hang the key up. In an emergency, I want to be able to get out quickly. So I always put a recommendation to change those out to a thumb latch style deadbolt. It eases somebody's ability to get out. If I'm fumbling around looking for a key and there's a fire behind me, not a good thing. So it's just a safety related issue there. Termite, unless you're going to crawl in the crawl space, in a lot of cases, you're not going to see that. Now, most termite companies charge around $100 to $125 to come out and do a termite assessment. Certainly, if we're having some moisture issues, the likelihood of you having termites is higher, because termites need two things. They need moisture and they need a food source. So with elevated moisture and all, your probability goes up. There's certain hot spots, anywhere where a set of steps meets the house, a deck meets the house. Certainly in any of those waterborne areas, your kitchen, your bathroom, your laundry room, all those areas could potentially be a zone for them. Certainly if you see, now a lot of people, flying ants and termites are very similar. You got to know what you're looking at, but certainly if you see something with wings and all, it doesn't hurt to call the bug man in and see what you've got, because they can over time do a lot of damage. So it really wouldn't hurt. Like I say, it's relatively inexpensive to have them come in and look. Also, too, if you're currently on a treatment program, a lot of those companies will allow the new buyer to assume the treatment at a reduced rate, which kind of shows your due diligence that you've been up on your preventive maintenance and that sort of thing, and it kind of gives that buyer an additional feel good on that that I'm buying something that we don't have a problem with here. And while I'm talking about that, Justin had mentioned earlier about that I do most of his buyers. I also do inspections for sellers, a pre-listing inspection, much like the one that I would do for a buyer. But what I'm doing is I'm more or less trying to find a laundry list of the things that you would need to attend to prior to putting it on the market and then subsequently getting an offer. Why should you do a pre-listing? Well, if you're handy, a lot of these things you can deal with, or you have time to find or shop around for a contractor to do the work. If you've already got an offer, the inspection's been done, the buyer comes back and says, look, I need you to do this, and this. Unfortunately, there's a time constraint there that you may have to find whoever you can find on that time constraint, and that may not be your cheapest option. So consider a pre-listing inspection. It will maybe smooth the selling process a little, and certainly if you've seen this message on Justin's podcast here, I'll offer a $100 discount on the pre-listing inspection. So I think it's well worth the effort. Like I say, it kind of eliminates all that 11th hour negotiation, other stressors there to getting the deal to go through.
All right, so I hope everybody was able to just get some great value out of all these things that Dave had to say today. Something that I was thinking of coming from the realtor side of things is a lot of these things that Dave was talking about are things that could come up in an FHA inspection, USDA. These are all types of loans that have their own little set of rules.
Yep.
And if the roof is bad, if there's active leaks,
peeling paint, loose handrails.
Yes.
Those are the low hanging fruit for any of the governmental VA, FHA, USDA.
And the inside deadbolt, they don't even allow them.
Correct.
You have to take for an FHA loan, USDA,
yep.
FHA 201k loan, all those 203k loan. no inside deadbolt. So
Right.
it's very helpful, because if there's the chances of you having a buyer come in with an FHA loan, USDA loan, all those different government-backed loans,
Mm-hmm.
they all have their own set of rules, and they're much more strict than a conventional loan.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
all these things are really important, not only just to be able to sell your house, but for the type of loan that your potential buyer might have. So,
Well, because most of those become what they call lender required repairs.
yes.
So you're going to have to do them whether you like it or not.
Right. Yeah. As long as you want to sell your house, you're pretty much bound to
Right.
those things as well. And one last thing I was actually going to touch on too was your septic system.
Absolutely.
And I have had a lot of transactions really get messed up or fall through because of bad septic system, and that could be something that could be a lot of money if you're not keeping up with that, or at least getting it pumped out. And that's when they find a lot of the issues, is when you're getting your septic pumped and they
Right.
go, this is we found this issue, let's get this fixed. And
Well, and now that you, as the owner, there are monies out there through the Chesapeake Bay Restoration Fund that
Right.
if you have a failing system, in most cases, that as long as there's money still left in the program, which I think July 1 it comes out, and it basically goes until it's exhausted.
Okay.
So
get in there early then.
Get in there early, because the fund does, gets replenished every July 1. If you've got a failing system, then there are monies out there that you wouldn't necessarily have to come out of pocket with. Now there's a few little things that you would have to do, because I don't know that it necessarily covers the tank and all. Now whether it covers the drain field, don't know on that one. I think it's a case by case basis on that. But certainly, get it pumped out. In a lot of cases, it might have a cracked lid. The baffle inside might be deteriorated. All things that the septic inspector is going to find when he goes through
Absolutely.
it. Because they're looking at, is it taking water? Is it
functioning?
Is
like
it functioning like it should? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And another thing too, while we're just on that whole area, is wells.
Yep.
Most people will get a well inspection and test the water and things like that.
Yep.
And that is something that could come up as well. So hey, maybe just getting a water test before you list the house. That could be, you might just be like, well, my water's been fine the whole time I've lived here. Well, that might be the case, but
Could be.
you don't know if there's bacteria in it. There's high levels of whatever, and
Right.
you just don't know. And a water test is like under $100, and you could literally take a sample, take it to the water testing place.
Right.
And it's just really easy. Gives you a little piece of mind.
Something as simple as the cap on the well being loose and one little spider making their way in there, that can be enough to set the bacterial count off.
That's crazy.
So yeah, you're cutting the grass and you bump into the wellhead.
Yeah.
The top gets loose. Things can get in there. The EPA has lowered the threshold so far that yes, you or I might not get sick,
right.
but it's not going to pass the criteria.
Gotcha.
Okay. So there's some simple things that can be done there too. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had no idea that something so small
could
set the levels off like.
Or if you're a seller, and let's say someone has not been in the house for, let's say, 3 to 6 months, more than likely would be well served to go ahead and chlorinate the well, because water sitting that long can have a problem. It just means that your buyer is going to end up running 2 tests, because I can pretty much tell you, if it's been sitting that period of time, it's probably going to fail the bacteria test.
Gotcha.
And they've just wasted not only a couple $100, but they've wasted valuable time, because by the time you get the results back and they figure out, oh, we've got to retest it, then they've got to come rechlorinate it and then test again. So we want these things to flow as smoothly as possible. Yeah. So kind of get ahead of that in advance.
And that's a great point. As a realtor, it's our job to keep the transaction moving in a good, positive direction where things are happening and helping you get to the closing table. So if, as you can see, if a lot of these things we talked about come up during the inspection period, it could hold up it could really hold up the transaction for a month, possibly,
right.
depending on the severity of the issues. So, I'm seeing a theme here, and all these things would absolutely back the closing date up.
And it's a stress reducer for all parties, for the buyer, for the seller, for the real estate agent. When we don't have to deal with all these things that come up at the 11th hour, when we're trying to get things aligned to go to settlement, if we don't have to deal with those, it certainly makes everybody's life a little bit easier to not have to, deal with these issues, and to know that basically we got a deal that's going forward. It's that's going to make everybody happy.
That's
and
right.
Move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I wanted to touch on before we get out of here, because he's got things to do today, but Dave takes a portion of what he gets for an inspection, and he donates that to a local organization called Wells for Ghana. Is that what it's called?
It's actually called Lifetime Wells International.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Because we're operating in two African countries now.
Oh, okay.
It used to be Lifetime Wells for Ghana. It is now
Okay.
Lifetime Wells International, because we are operating in Ghana and Tanzania.
Cool. So if you don't mind, just explain what
Sure.
that is, because you'll do a better job than I can.
Okay. Well, for anybody that lives on the shore here, there's a well drilling company in Denton, Maryland, Lifetime Wells International, or Lifetime Wells.
And they'll be doing my well
Right.
here in about a week in
Right.
our new house.
A gentleman by the name of Ken Wood, who's probably been a well driller for about 50 years. 12 or 13 years ago, he was contacted by a church in York, Pennsylvania, to assist them in a mission that they wanted to do in Africa. And so he, in fact, how it kind of came about was he was selling one of his rigs, and they wanted to buy one of his drill rigs to send to Africa, with the condition that he went with them to show them how to use it.
Right.
So he did that. The church kind of lost interest, so he bought the rig back and continued drilling. That was, like I say, 12 years ago. About 7 years ago, we started doing the same thing in Tanzania. This last trip, where he put 70 wells in 3 weeks,
Wow.
bumped us over the 3,000 well limit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's
so
amazing. And these are wells. I mean, you're bringing fresh water to people that have never had fresh water.
No, these
who are
people
getting sick, just having to walk miles to get water, and
absolutely.
that water is probably pretty nasty.
It's
right?
all surface water. So when it gets to be the end of the dry season, their options are getting pretty thin. And like you say, the instances of disease are very much a reality. It's also too the part that you said about walking miles. Not unusual to walk 4 or 5 miles, and you've got to do these multiple times a day. It doesn't leave a lot of time to do other things. So by putting these wells in, one, they get a clean source of water, but two, they have time to tend to their children, to maybe spend a little more time in the fields, because most of these folks are subsistence farmers. We're not in the cities. We're out in the country.
That's really cool. And you're heading out in February.
I am. I'm making my 8th trip. I'm going to Tanzania in February. We'll be there for 3 weeks, and praying for good water.
Yeah, right. Well, that is so cool. And again, Dave takes a portion of what he makes with his inspections, and he donates it right back to Lifetime
Wells International.
Wells International. Okay, awesome. So
if you're interested, our website is lifetimewellsinternational.org.
Okay, awesome. And just lastly, just remember, Dave is offering $100 off for any pre-listing inspections.
Correct.
And I think that's pretty awesome. So thanks for that, Dave. And thanks for being here. Dave is local to the Eastern Shore. You've pretty much lived here your whole life, right?
Other than the time I was in college.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So Dave knows the area really well, and you know, he knows the conditions. He knows just everything there is to know about this area and the homes here, and he does an amazing job. So Dave, thanks for being here, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see
Appreciate
you,
it.
man.
Appreciate
and
it.
just thanks for just bringing value to everyone watching.
Thank you.
And we'd love to have you back for some
I'd
additional
love to be
videos.
back.
So, all right, brother.
Thank you
Thanks,
now.
man.
Thank you.